Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and I am the Local Export Partnership Programme Manager for the Highlands and Islands region. So I'll give you just a little background on me and what I do, and then I'll go into the Brexit topics. So the Local Export Partnership is led by Inverness Chamber of Commerce in partnership with a number of other Highland agencies, so Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Business Gateway, the Enterprise Europe Network, various local councils across the Highlands and Islands, as well as Caithness, Murray and Lochaber Chambers of Commerce. The programme aims to support small businesses in the Highlands and Islands who are looking to start exporting for the first time, or businesses who are already exporting but would like to access new markets. We offer a range of support and services covering a broad range of services, so bespoke export action planning, one-to-one advice and signposting based on the most relevant agency to deal with the technical inquiry, support with technical inquiries ourselves, and we can access the Global Chamber of Commerce network. We also offer mentoring support through our partnership with Global Scot Mentoring Service, which is a part of Scottish Enterprise, and it's a worldwide network of entrepreneurs and business leaders with connections with Scotland who are passionate about helping Scottish businesses to grow. And we also offer funding assistance. It's meant to be a sort of last resort funding for companies who wouldn't be able to attend an event without our funding assistance. So it's micro grants of up to £350 to cover the cost of travel and accommodation to an export-related event or trade show, either in the UK or overseas. And it's to give you an example, we recently funded a company from the Isle of Jura who were looking to travel to Inverness for an international event from Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and it was going to be a 3-day round trip, and our funding covered the cost of the trip, which enabled her to go. And it's available through a one-page application through myself and usually turned around in 24 to 48 hours. So that's just an overview of the programme, and so I'll just go into the topics that I'm going to discuss today. So there's obviously a number of factors that is playing on everybody's mind at the moment, and there's a lot of areas that are still in question. So today I'm going to talk about export documentation, customs declarations, rules of origin, ERA numbers, which Trudy already mentioned, AEO status, and transitional simplified procedures. So in terms of export documentation, I'll talk about what will happen if we leave the EU with a deal, and also what will happen if there's no deal agreed and it's a hard Brexit. So the British Chambers of Commerce network continue to work closely with HMRC and the Department for International Trade at the UK government. So they're revising a new format for both preference and non-preference export documents. Go back a bit. So in terms of preference documentation, Inverness Chamber of Commerce currently issue EUR1s and ATR certificates, and preference documentation is only required where the UK has specific trade agreements in place with individual countries or groups of countries. So that means that customers can import goods at a reduced rate of duty or with no duty at all, and if we leave the EU with no deal, the UK companies will no longer be able to apply these preference rules. Preference documents are completed to comply with HMRC rules, and then the Chambers of Commerce just face check the documents that are filled out correctly, and the goods need to meet the appropriate rules of origin that are outlined in Customs Notices 827 and 828. So if we leave the EU without a deal in place, HMRC have contingency plans in place to issue new revised documents immediately after the 29th of March, and Chambers will be supplied with the appropriate new documents. And in terms of non-preference certificates, we currently use European Community Certificates of Origin. If we leave with a deal, this will continue the same as it is at the moment, so until the end of the transition period, which is expected to be until the end of 2020. If we leave without a deal, these will change immediately and will be changed to United Kingdom Certificates of Origin. So British Chambers of Commerce and HMRC will supply the Chambers of Commerce with appropriate supplies of United Kingdom Certificates of Origin ready to issue immediately after the 29th of March. That will also change the way that goods are declared, the origin of the goods are declared on the back of the certificate. So at the moment, goods can originate from any EU member state when exporting to countries out with the EU. And that will change. I'll talk about rules of origin in a moment. There we go. So the rules of origin are obviously used to determine the national source of a product, and duties and quotas apply depending on the origin of the product. So current EU free trade agreements with third countries allow the goods to originate from any EU member state, and UK origin goods may no longer apply for these preference rules, which will impact UK companies who are part of a European supply chain. So if we leave with no deal in place, UK companies will have to meet a minimum threshold of 60% UK origin, and the companies will have to evidence that their goods meet that minimum threshold, and that applies the 60-40 rule. So if UK companies can't justify that their goods meet 60% UK origin, they will then have to pay the difference in duties at customs. So it's vitally important that companies are considering their supply chains at this moment and putting contingency plans in place in case it's a no deal. That is only if there's a no deal. So if there is a deal, we can continue to use European Community Certificates of Origin in the meantime. So customs declarations are official documents listing and giving details of goods being imported and exported. Declarations should be made by the exporter and the importer, and are quite often done on behalf of a company by the logistics company or freight forwarder. Customs declarations are currently made through an online system called Chief, although this will soon change to a new customs declaration service later on in 2019. And both systems will then work in parallel to cope with the expected increase in the declarations being made. If the UK leave the EU without a deal, the number of customs declarations being made is expected to increase from 155 million to 355 million, which can inevitably cause delays at customs, especially if the declarations are done incorrectly. This will most likely impact businesses who haven't done customs declarations before, and this is their first time doing this. It's also vitally important that you're using the correct commodity code for your product, because if you use the wrong code, that will result in delays or fines at customs. And if your freight forwarder is doing your customs declarations on your behalf, make sure that they're using the correct commodity code so that you don't face the fine or delay. So, as Trudy mentioned, an EORI number stands for Economic Operator Registration and Identification Number. HMRC are reminding businesses to register for an EORI number if you don't already have one, and that's vitally important that you do that now. An online application takes 10 minutes on HMRC's website, and it can take 3 days to process, but because of the huge backlog at HMRC, this can take a lot longer. The EORI number is crucial to continue trading with the EU. If we leave the EU without a deal, you'll need this number to continue trading after the 29th of March. So businesses are encouraged to apply for this now if you haven't already done so. And if you already have an EORI number but don't have a note of it, you can contact HMRC and they'll be able to help you identify that. So AEO status is a certified standard authorisation by Customs Administration in the European Union. The EU are actively encouraging organisations who export out with the EU to sign up to the initiative and become AEO registered. The AEO status is an internationally recognised mark of quality, and it demonstrates that you meet certain requirements in relation to safety and security, systems to manage commercial records, compliance and customs rules, financial solvency and practical standards of competence or professional qualifications. At the moment, within the Single Market and Customs Union, companies who have AEO status have a clear advantage when exporting, particularly to the United States or other large economies. Post-Brexit, AEO certification is expected to become even more desirable as an internationally recognised tool to keep cargo moving. Achieving AEO status can be time consuming, so it can take 4 months to process the application, but it can offer a broad range of benefits. It's not for every company, it's much more appropriate for some rather than others, but it can offer a range of benefits, including increased transport security, reduced administration in the customs declarations, fewer delayed shipments. You're less likely to be selected for customs inspections, and if you are selected for an inspection, you get priority treatment and you can choose where the inspections will take place. And you get an advance notice of inspections if they're likely to take place. So to apply for AEO certification, you need an ERA number, and you must complete the application pack, which is then sent to HMRC. There's 2 application forms. The process takes 4 months and it can cost between £10,000 and £20,000, so that is why it's important to highlight it's not for every company. It's much more appropriate for some rather than others. But some companies might be under pressure from their supply chains to become AEO registered. The UK currently has 707 AEO registered companies, and 24% of them are freight forwarders. So if you use a freight forwarder, it's worthwhile checking whether your freight forwarder's AEO registered, and if they're not AEO registered, check what their contingency plans, if they've got the contingency plans in place in the event of a no deal. And so the last topic I'm going to talk about is transitional simplified procedures. So this is one of the temporary measures being put in place by HMRC in the event of a no deal Brexit. And it reduces the amount of information you need to provide when doing customs declarations for importing, and it allows you to defer any duty for 3 months. And in the event of a no deal, many companies will need to apply for the same procedures to EU trade as they would to trading to third countries. So transitional simplified procedures will allow you to defer duty for a 3-month period, and they will be reviewed in June. The procedures are much more beneficial for those who are importers rather than exporters, and if you're interested in registering for transitional simplified procedures, then you can do this on HMRC's website. And they are just my contact details. I'll be around for the Q&A afterwards, and I'll be around after the event, and I've got a couple of handouts for British Chambers of Commerce, Brexit, checklist and things like that, so I'll hand them out afterwards. So thank you very much.